Greetings. Welcome to another edition of I Black Sunday School. Yes, it's a somber time. Yes, it's a very, very somber time that I and I have to speak on this Sunday school. Rough times happening, rough things taking place in Jamaica and in the world in general. The focus from this Sunday school is about Jamaica and Melissa. Impact of Melissa, its origin, calamity, the response. Yes, I'm gonna think the time has come for us beginning in what I am calling a post-mortem of Melissa. What have been the effects of Melissa in all spheres of life? What has been the response to Melissa in this new crisis? So the traditional plantation Sunday school, if this were such a setting, the pastor perhaps would be preaching to the people, telling them that they must be thankful for God's mercies and that his mercies endure forever. Yes, and we must give thanks for life, that our life is the most important thing. These are the chants that we hear, both from the pupil, pulpit, and from the people in general. Now, this particular Sunday school, we want to really query, first and foremost, the origin, or let me say the genesis, not this time of the world, but the genesis of Melissa. How was Melissa born? And was Melissa man-made, or was Melissa sent by God? These are the two perspectives we will explore in this analysis of the impact of Melissa. But also, when you look at what were some of the presumptions before the storm, what was the nature of the preparation, and did everybody take it as serious as it was supposed to be taken? And why is it so much of the population always have the belief that Jamaica will be steered? There are people who have this belief and conviction that Jamaica is a blessed land. And in this blessedness, we talk about very serious murder rates, serious amount of judicial killing, high levels of unemployment. So I have a question, what is the nature of being blessed? So quite a few things to examine and explore since Melissa passed through. We also want to look at the immediate response of the government and the response of the international community, which has been overwhelming. And we want to look at some of the results of some of the previous hurricanes and what was the behavior of the people and the government at that time. So we look at quite a few things, but we will take them as they come. And what we can, I can put forward this time, it will be in the next session. So the fundamental question that the people embrace themselves with as it relates to Melissa is that, is it God sent or is it man made? Now both of those answers have serious implications. Both of those answers are serious. And we'll turn it how we look at the future. Now, the human being, the European, the white man, has spent a lot of his time experimenting and investing his money and research into instruments of power, how to have instruments that are powerful to drive fear in people, which leads us to the highest levels of weapons, which are nuclear and the missiles. So we're at a stage in the world now where all nations are exposing their military and the power of the missiles they have, and the power over death and life and so on and so forth. So we see that being demonstrated at that level. Now, the level of human being involvement in phenomenon, natural events, is also known. That these men and people have investigated with how things form in nature, how rain falls, how lightning flash, what causes thunder to roll, what causes the weather climate to change. Men have been studying these things for hundreds of years. And they've refined their understanding to the point where man is presently able to influence the weather. I'm not saying control. I'm saying the human being has reached a point where he is able now to influence the weather. And there's a lot of evidence from the 40s, for example, the 50s. In the United States began to do things like interfere with the clouds to induce rain. So when I was a youth at primary school, we heard about cloud seeding. Never knew what it really was. But we know some man go up to some plane and see the cloud. Never know what seeding means until later on realize that the man is dropping iodine within the clouds to try to force rain. That is 60 years ago. Now imagine the advancement in that technology over 60 years. You imagine now what the human being is capable of doing now 60 years later. So droughts can be created because weather patterns are interfered with, movement of the winds above our heads. Instruments have been developed to interfere with atmosphere, electromagnetic fields. There's an instrument called HAARP, HAARP. You can look it up. It's in the North Pole. So I'm saying all these things to say that let us not be naive that the human being is unable to influence the weather. The human being can create earthquakes by exploding missiles in mountains, underwater, under the sea. They can create and trigger tsunamis and therefore influence population, influence politics, influence control, influence rebuilding processes. Because there's a phenomenon that has been exposed that wherever there is destruction, there is reconstruction. And there are always vultures waiting to dive down on the victims. So there are those who are saying that Melissa was man-made. Of course, there are people who will hold that view. Because the suspicion is always great enough that the opposition and the oppressors are always searching for ways to secure and maintain control. And there's a new type of insurance so for destruction in advance through nature, etc., etc. So it's becoming a business. Perhaps a new industry. Gaza is an example, prime example of devastation and then rebuilding, reconstruction by those who have the forces of the money. So what would be the benefit of who? Who would benefit by constructing and designing a hurricane to demolish Jamaica at this moment? Who will be the unscrupulous ones to have that level of control and resource that they can build up a storm with whatever instruments they have and can direct that energy to move along a certain path at a certain speed? It's a whole heap of things. It's not beyond man. Because for the first time, even if man, this human being himself manifests a category 5 Earth hurricane. Category 5 is the highest fastest you've ever seen. 185 miles per hour. So the end result now on an island like Jamaica is total devastation, a category 5. And I'm a man who have been living in the Northeast for decades, felt the brunt of Gilbert, 1988. And I saw the devastation of Portland and Port Antonio during that time we had to go through. And yet what's happening now in category 5 is incomparable to anything the country has ever seen. All, all wooden structures blown away. Every wooden structure from St. Elizabeth to Westmoreland to Trelawney to St. James to Hanover. Every wooden building is no longer up. So the devastation for shelter, and the shelter for the people literally now have no shelter. And it is dawning on the population and the leadership that before you feed yourself, the priority is not food in survival. The priority is shelter. So the serious lesson I hope is being impressed on the leadership that shelter is the most important need of the population. And shelter is guaranteed to the people when they know they own the land. When they own the land that they live on, the insecurity for shelter disappears. Now people may have to end up selling them land to make space now for a new city. Check it out. Because the argument and the conversation around the destruction is how do you rebuild, and the rebuilding must fit the future. And what the future means is digital. So is this a way to clear a space to insert the digital cities of the future? So those who are suspicious will perhaps travel along that line of reasoning and realize that there needs to be an example of a digital city in the Caribbean, digital town that runs by the methods of Europe and America. And we're better now to construct that now than in a devastated area. like St. Elizabeth. So these type of speculations are driven by the inability to trust those who are in power. So I soon come forward to that line of reasoning as to whether the hurricane was man-made or not. So the other side of the coin to the hurricane is that people who would believe that it was God sent. And then those who think it was God sent generally are those who are still alive and have not suffered much damage. That's very difficult for those who are devastated to think that God sent this on them. What have they done? What is the sins of the people, of so many people, that the God would send a devastating category 5 in that section? And if it had come to the northeast and Portland and St. Thomas were devastated, the people in the west would say, see, we have been snared. So it's the same God that we are speaking of now that caused the destruction. We think it's the same God that steers us. How we work at all. How we work at all. So the destruction and devastation, are we to attribute it to God, or is it man who has interfered with the weather climate and has brought forth destruction? Or is it that God and man is the same idea? So it's a time for serious introspection and reflection on life and death and rebirth. So the people who have been white will have to experience a rebirth from the very foundation, which is themselves and the family. So this drama that I and I experiencing now, I am at a distance. I am in St. Andrew. And it is a torture to look at the devastation, knowing that the support that is needed will be very minimum coming from our population. The devastation is so great that it requires international, organized recovery. This is really going to become tricky for international donors and supporters. Oftentimes have some political strings attached to the support. So we're going to see over time what are the strings attached to these international supports. The support that's coming from the what we call the diaspora, the Jamaican people abroad, and our entertainers and our sports people is overwhelming. It's overwhelming the level of response by the international community for this island, showing that Jamaica is not just a dot, but if it is a dot, it is a dot at the center of a circle. It is that where you put the point for the compass to make the circle. There's every circle of a center, and the center is a dot. Mathematics, you put the compass down, put the point on the paper, and you swing around, and you make a circle. So there's a center to the circle. Jamaica, Jamaica is that spot, is that center. And the volume of the outpouring of, yeah, they call it love, cares, respect. It's a dignity built up to our athletes and our sportsmen and our Rastafari tradition that people in the international world respect. And so the volume of support coming into Jamaica is more than what any party here can manage. And my concerns about the skull over now and the robbery, which has always followed after people support the island. After Gilbert, Jamaica could have been a brand new island, but it's pure robbery and thief going with the goods and the services that came in. This time the return is even greater. What will be the outcome? I am deeply concerned. And at a level of concern, I am saying no. The management of the Jamaican recovery should not be limited to the party that is in power. This recovery effort is so vast that I'm proposing and suggesting that there be some interim coalition government put in place a coalition of the both political parties to rescue and rebuild Jamaica. It's not a party issue. JLP cannot rebuild Jamaica. This is a category 5 of the chain of the war. This is a category 5 that should bring the entire political family into one unit. All 63 men should be working as one unit now. The 220 odd councillors should be one body that is committed now to the redevelopment of the island. It's an opportunity to break the tribal politics and its structure and get a coalition to save the country. JLP can't do it. JLP can't do nothing about this. It's not like a one parish thing, you know. The situation where for the next maybe 5 to 10 years the people will not even see what they had before. So this is more than a party effort. And the national effort would really mean a coalition of all political parties, not just PNP and JLP. WPJ, PJ, JPP, UIC, all the political agencies, bodies should be on one page. So I'm suggesting that part of the resolution to help in Jamaica recovery is that we begin to move towards thinking about a coalition of the two leading government parties, that they are unity government. So when the resources continue to flood in to support us, it is separated and distributed on a unified level. We temporarily put PNP and JLP aside, and for the first time now, we have to think about island Jamaica. But is that possible? That is a political response. So we return to the natural phenomenon again, the hurricane. Those who think it was God sent call themselves Christians. And these same people will celebrate when the hurricane miss them but go to a place like Haiti. And Haiti is now called Eden society. And we condemn, we don't want same righteousness, the same Christian righteousness. Haiti is condemned because Haiti doesn't say Jesus, and Haiti is not into the European traditions of religion. And so we hope that the God that we pray to save us will destroy somebody else. That is dread. What is the nature then of that God? The same God they have been telling us about from Sunday school. What could be the nature of that God that we have to be holding on so tight? And why can't we release ourselves and be free? We hear no commentary on the nature or the role of evil or the devil in our destruction. What then is the role of the devil? Certainly there's no attribute the hurricane and natural phenomenon to the devil. We say all these things are the will of God. So what then is the function and purpose of something called devil? Does it really exist if all things come from God, both good and evil? Why then is there need for a devil? Because the God and the devil will be the same. Yeah, we should not be afraid to take Hurricane Melissa wipe out the bread basket in Jamaica. What was called the food basket, it's gone. So where will the food come from to feed the island? Where will the food come from? And the costing of the food at this point in time now has skyrocketed already. So St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland, which is sent forward the food and the goat ganja, have now gone to rest. So the split has gotten smaller, but the price is getting bigger. The tomato prices will go into the hundreds of dollars per pound now. and the food crisis is certainly intensified. So people may actually have money but be unable to afford the food. Crisis ahead. No one political strife can solve it what's ahead. All the roads to be rebuilt and the houses to be reconstructed and the pipe system to put in place. No party can lead that and bring that to fruition. So the bread basket is gone and hunger is on the horizon. Solution: imported food. Imported food. And with food coming in will be cheaper than the food farmed by the local because it's mass production and it's low quality. So we're going to get that beaten in our nutrition. The food prices are rising. And now we're seeing the wickedness the people now. This is not governmental now. This is a Jamaican mentality. When the prices become ridiculous just because. And you have man in the communities that are being supported by outside forces to provide food. You have man in the community robbing people, bringing goods into the community. This is gone beyond repair. So the vultures, you have vultures on the ground, feeding up on the desolate, and you have vultures at the top, looking down on economic investments and opportunities. And in between, thousands and thousands of black people, homeless, schools destroyed, primary schools, everything growing, children education, set in reverse. There's devastation. In these moments, you have to just kind of hold your corner and do some reflection about life and what can be here today and what can evaporate tomorrow, then what was the purpose of our being? What is the purpose of our being? How many people have their whole entire life and savings and property wiped away? What was the purpose of constructing in the first place? So what is this reading all about? So we learn about the value of consciousness, things that we can do when we are conscious. Because there are other phases that are going to be difficult to contend with. Now the future, within the realm of weather, should keep us on our toes because officially we're still in the weather hurricane season. Hurricane season is on in the books supposed to end sometime in November. So it's not impossible to conceptualize another hurricane coming this way again. So under this type of natural phenomenon and destruction, it's very difficult to know why the island like Jamaica to really develop consistently. So the issue of roads, both political parties have used as a consistent tool for election, the roads. And then with the weather that we experience, the levels of rain and so forth, the roads turn into potholes overnight. But it's not because of the weather. It's a poor management and skullduggery in building proper roads. We just have to look at the roads being built in Burkina Faso. Look at the roads and how much cement is used at the foundation of those roads. And yet in the Caribbean space and a place like Jamaica, we don't apply cement as a factor to give us consistent roads. The roads that Burkina Faso have just constructed, they last them about 20 years, carrying heavy hundreds of tons of material on those roads. So it's an inefficiency in the leadership why we have to endure these sufferings under natural phenomenon. then the investment is never in the people. The homes that have been in wood for 50 years, no structural changes are made. They just remain as vintage until nature comes and moves it. Jamaica trying to build a road from Harborview in St. Andrew to Port Antonio, but can't finish and can't build yet. Over 10, 15 years. Yeah, can't finish building. Inefficiency, skullduggery, lack of leadership, and the road cannot be fixed. There's a piece of road between St. Mary and St. Andrew that we call the junction. And for years upon years upon years, that road cannot be fixed. And yet there's technology in the world that could be brought to resolve that. But it's the leadership quality that is so poor, being exposed now. Melissa is showing that the country lacks, yeah, that command, ding, voice, or voices. Melissa showed that the opposition is no voice. Opposition cannot contribute anything to the recovery. They are so accustomed to fighting against each other. Now they have to put the fighting down and fight for Jamaica. It's becoming a problem. Yeah, this is not a PNP JLP fight. And they're not accustomed to that, politicians. Everybody in the island is waking up to the fact that the politicians really have no control and care over the general population. And in that awareness, if you look at Burkina Faso, look at the role that a conscious military can play. Yeah, we need alternatives to the political parties. We need more political parties, and we also need to think about the military. What a conscious discipline military can do for an island. You know, we think outside of democracy, socialist, capitalist framework. Look at the model being set now in Africa, in the West. Progressive revolutionary governments. So the resources of the country, the mining and the bauxite and the tourist industry, those resources should be used to rebuild our country and fix up everywhere else. So some of the soon drifting out because of Melissa. It has caused a lot of thinking and the need for a new collaboration in the island. We have to use this experience to rise above PNP, JLP, and begin to see a unity government. Yes, there are 63 men and women in the thing that we elect. There should be a common objective between all 63, which is the rescuing of Jamaica Island. Yeah, we need a unity government, we need a coalition government that we can get the voices of the UIC and the Marcus Garvey Commission, and we get all the Jamaica now to function as the foundation of our recovery. So we'll be genuinely able to reclaim Jamaica as our homeland. The athletes and the entertainers should be at the front of our leadership when it comes to producing ideas. We always be tapping into those people who are our first line soldiers. These are the people who will die for Jamaica. So if we restructure the whole system that people who live off the island have influence on the island collectively. Yeah, Melissa is a turning point. And the whole island have to pivot. The whole globe is pivoting, you know. The United States, Europe, nobody pivoting. It is the Caribbean time to pivot, and Jamaica now must pivot toward a new type of leadership that is based upon a unity government, a coalition, and we break back the tribalism and refocus on building up regions, regional politics. So where is destroyed is Western Jamaica, that is a region of itself. There's the northeast, which is Portland and St. Mary and St. Anne. There's Kingston on St. Andrew, and it's in capturing straight down to Clarendon, St. Elizabeth, Manchester. We have four regions in the country. Because we consider regional development now, rather than constituency development. Because they look at regional development. They have a breakout of the tribe. 63 constituencies on an island of this size. Top up too small. We didn't know accountability. You know, this big, everybody have a little piece now. Let us make it more accountable. So we have four regions with governorship in each region and accountability to the leadership in each confederation. The Melissa is a point of pivoting. Our Black Sunday School, moving away from the Genesis version of reality and look at the version of the reality that brought Melissa here. Whether it was man-made or not, people are concentrated on the outcome. If it was man-made, what is the expected outcome? If it's God sent it, what is the expected outcome? If it's neither, there's nothing to blame. What was required is self-analysis of how could this have been prevented to the degree that you can prevent anything in the category 5. So hospitals are down. Hospitals health is coming in. People are coming as far as we are from Israel now. So everybody will come, but we as Jamaicans are prepared for what they are leaving when they're gone. I'm going to ask the ministers and these people know what have been the agreements, what are the clauses in the contracts being signed. Is it that we're going to turn the land over now forever to for overseas investors? Is it a good surrendering of the land for them to bring them resource? And the Jamaica become less landowners and more tenants? What is the concept of the republic now? How much difference it make whether we are a republic or not? Still in the Commonwealth. So certain things have to put away to focus on recovery. Leadership is essential. Leadership. And the leadership must be reflection of a unified Jamaica. Party politics done. Tribal politics is over. But the black consciousness on an island this size, which is at the center of the world. So anything that happens here in the world, it will reflect on the outside. So we better know what we're doing. Have to know what we're doing. And we're being used by higher powers to set examples. And higher power over Jamaica is the United States. So we're watching. We can only observe and speak. Do what I and I observe. But eyes are on Jamaica and hands are getting closer. The claws are coming closer. So I as a resident must stay alert and be aware of the politics and the economics of weather warfare. Yes, weather warfare. It does not be naive. Jamaica, we here through some form of vision, signed up our insurance policy against hurricanes. And whether we want to, or we know how we do know, it became important because it's like $25 billion the country will acquire from the insurance that was paid for in case of a hurricane. And the hurricane has come at much category and the state according to the contract. So money make after the disaster by the government through insurance. And plenty monies are made when areas go into destruction. Monies are made legitimately hustling people take goods into the area that short. but it's also made by the merchants, who oftentimes raise the price of the goods because the goods are now scarce. Demand is greater now than the supply, and the price goes up. And so there are always hustlers in that times of disaster. We need to reduce that hunger vampire behavior and make it think as a collective. If we use Melissa to pivot towards unity, pivot towards a collective activity, there is utterances from the government that because the West is no longer functional as food, the East must do it now. And it's theory. And it's just talk. Because the East has no infrastructure to support what the West was doing. So it's just talk. So we're not getting anything substantial or proposition out of the leadership here. That's a young leadership have experience that them thing. And nobody here in Jamaica have any experience as to what to do now. So that's why they better them put them heads together. They put them heads together and think of the island. Yeah. And look at what's happening in Western Africa when the leadership demand to control the sovereignty of the place. So the model is here. The model is here. And Sunday school I said, if you believe he says God calls it, then we can't do nothing about it. Because God calls the people every day. And God is selecting life and death and He's selecting hurricanes and earthquakes. And if you think God make all those things, then so be it. But I know of the power of human being and the influence. And so preparation and consciousness is what is essential. Not fear. Consciousness and preparation. And it's what I know how to speak to. Yeah, the sun. So we're gonna go. Again, you can always email link, Facebook, Black Diamond Black or Metamorphosis. Subscribe to the channel. I Black Sunday School. And think about the powers of the phenomenon. Rain through condensation and evaporation, you get rain. And the clouds collide, you get thunder and lightning. So there are natural phenomena, but there's also a phenomenon that have been interfered with by man. So that does not shut down the possibility of these phenomena being directed now for economic purposes and for control. There's war, there's war, and war, all wars are fundamentally driven by the desire for land. Land, the basis of control and power. So if I can wage war with you to capture your land, whatever method of war is necessary, that's what I will use. So if I can't use guns and bombs, but I can create a drought, or I can interfere with the weather and cause a flood. And the flooding is what will cause you your problem. So let us not be naive. Let us not be naive. And at the same time, let us not be paranoid. Let us not become paranoid. Make a whole balance, overstanding. And see the end point of this Melissa is really that we should be moving toward a more collective construct of Jamaica, defined by the people on the island and supported by the people who are off of the island. There are redefinition. I don't fit into no democracy, socialist republic framework. We need to also get the military as part of our support system. Yes, the military. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. To bring all the forces we have together now to rescue reconstruct this place. And the military could be the front runner for the rebuilding of Jamaica. Bridges and the roads. The military could be up front first and foremost. That when we pay, we don't pay foreigners rebuild our country, money stays in the country. Yes, it is like Black Sunday school. Yeah, looking at yes. So natural phenomenon, hurricane, tornado, storm. In the United States is under hurricane watch. And the hurricane that is going through America is political and economic. And at the eye of the hurricane is one Donald J. Trump, the author of chaos. You see, power is a tricky force to embrace. And power is not property. Power is not property. I want to see a situation now in the United States where the man was being put into the most powerful office. His behavior is demonstrating one who sees power as something to own. There's a property, and he now is a owner. And with this power, you're able to manifest anything that comes to your imagination. So it has caused a storm in the American political structure, a storm that is intensifying the approaching hurricane winds. And the category number, nowhere near 5 yet, but strong enough to shut down the country. Yes, these category winds have now shut down America, the great big America, and have sent millions of people into hungry. Yeah, unheard of. We just battled with Melissa, and we have a few thousand people down there hungry now. But on the Great Northern Plantation, the winds of Hurricane Trump send enough people hungry and homeless, more homeless, in a time when the weather is getting colder. At a time when the people in America must celebrate Thanksgiving and kill turkeys and feed themselves. There is no food. Dang. No. We can't call those type of hurricanes godsends. Or can we? Because we can see direct influence and manipulation through human beings. But the destruction is so vast, make you wonder, where is God? Where is God to help those hungry people now? Because we know that all the money in America, it says in God we trust. So different type of storm, hurricane, are being manifested around the eye of Donald Trump. And when the eye of hurricane moves to a place like Israel and have conversations and over to do war, when they believe it's pure war after pure destruction, you check the movements. Everywhere the eye of the storm goes, once it moves away, it's terror. So metaphysically, hurricanes and storms are natural phenomena. But human beings have been able to create these things out of their own ingenuity and decrepidity in their thinking. So the storm is in America now. Hit the airlines. And the airlines have people who are working who are not being paid, so they're calling in sick. So the safety level of flying in America now has gone down by 50%. Minimum, and the amount of flights being cancelled is ridiculous. Thousands. This is the impact of a storm in America, political hurricane. And it is building to the extent that New York City, which is a symbol of America, has found it prudent to elect a mayor who is a Muslim. Now, I was in America when I think the first Jew was elected. Could have been Mayor Koch as mayor of New York. I don't have Lindsay that preceded him was a Jew, but Mayor Koch was a Jew. And so the Jews have been dominant in New York from the 60s and before in the political life and economics of New York City, the city that never sleeps. So here we are now in 2025, and the mayor of New York is a Muslim, the same set of people that are responsible for 9/11 in 2001 and the destruction of the World Trade Center. That God would start the war against, when they call it the war against terror, but the war against the Muslims. And America has reached a stage now where, to challenge and have some contest against the will now of the Trump. They put a Muslim in office as a mayor. I'm trying to show the island how America now is becoming so deeply divided and on the verge of a serious implosion. That to respond to Trumpian antics, New York City thinks it's important, New York, that we have a Muslim mayor. And the Muslim mayor is not saying the same thing that Trump and the president is saying. So they actually at odds with each other. It's just an open sore. And that is those are side effects of the storm that is blowing through the hurricane that is now blowing through America. Where grown men accept them salaries while those who they are working for remain hungry and unemployed. Talking about the congressmen who refuse to come to an agreement, they are still getting salaries. And the traffic, those who control the traffic, are on no salaries, but are forced to still go to work. This is democracy. This is liberty. This is freedom. This is freedom. So democracy work. You have to go to work and you're not being paid. What then is the duty in this democracy? The natural phenomenon expose one thing, but the phenomenon of destruction by men show you something else. So America is under its own self-destruction. The population that is disintegrating, increasing stress, increasing hunger, increasing suicide, increasing gun shooting. Everything on the increase in America that is negative. So I and I have to use those situations as examples of how not to try. But type of leadership is not the best type of leadership to have. And we have to also look at what's happening in Africa, at the Renaissance, the new model of leadership that is being established. It's not about democracy or about socialism or communism. It's about a government that is revolutionary and progressive. Yes, a revolutionary progressive government will have the people at the foremost, not in speech, but in action. Roads, electricity, education system, hospital system. These are not things they talk about during election. These are things that the revolutionary government implement because the resources that are necessary are not from loans and not from the borrowings. What is used to be infrastructure is what the country has earned. So the model is that Jamaica is earning from our natural resources. We want to build the roads and hospitals. It should be IMF loans. It should be grants and loans to build hospitals in Jamaica. It should be the returns from the mining and the hotel and our primary industries. The model is being set. When the leaders awaken, when the owners and the government feel embarrassed to try to send $600 million to Burkina Faso to some pseudo apology, only for the leader to send it back and tell the government to use that money and help your own country, put integrity systems in place for leadership and fix the hospitals. Leadership that can reject money, that can say no if you try to violate your dignity and your sovereignty. So what is Jamaica apologizing to Burkina Faso for? Or where do we get 800 million US for that? Where was that money and where is that money now to help in the recovery? So it's an awakening. Do we express our condolences consistent with the people of the island who feel the wrath? We are still looking at beyond. And beyond is what we need to focus on. How do we regroup after this devastation? And how do we get the population to be closer to the driver's seat than the politicians? Yeah, so let's say that to people. So we end up married, we end up Blackstone, we end up Melanin Royal, we end up Clive, yeah, we end up our ones and ones, yeah, at Blackstone School. Postmortem on Melissa. Man made or God sent. What is the future for this island? No sun will shine over my day today. No sun will shine. The high yellow moon won't come out to play. Won't come out to play. I said, darkness has covered my life, and the day is my day and night. Yeah. Where is the love to be found? Oh, someone tell me, 'cause I must be somewhere.